Microtrending.
Welcome back. I'm Gabrielle and you are listening to Microtrending. It has been more than a moment and I am more than happy to explain, which I will shortly. And as always, I just really appreciate you being here and listening. And I also do have to recognize that there are some more major headlines and world happenings of note, issues of note, but this is a space for escaping that a little bit while also acknowledging, how media and internet culture is reflective of those larger things. This is a podcast for anything that is trending, for better or for worse. And there's some stuff that is trending for worse right now. And I am speaking vaguely for a reason. Obviously, I apologize for any vagueness in advance. I think we all know what we're talking about here. I will say that I did drive past a demonstration earlier today. Was not happy to stumble upon that, and there was a sign that said, "We are all," insert name of podcaster here. And that person can speak for themselves. It is all a bit concerning, but this episode is not about that. This is also an audio only episode for reasons I will kind of explain at the top here. And then we'll get into some beige updates. There's always something happening in Operation Beige Land. I'm playing a little bit of catch up, so you'll notice later there are some headlines that are not super fresh, but they are obviously all related, and I just haven't had the chance to have some extended thoughts on the record here. So we'll get to beige updates in a minute, but this being an audio only episode and we will be back up in business soon is because I have reached kind of a temporary crashing point. Not crashed out. I'm actually I'm in a pretty good mood, I have to say. All things considered, there's stuff to be upset about. Many things going well, but my body, my nervous system, whatever it is, I think realized it was operating at an unhealthy level of, I'm guessing, stress. It's nothing super scary, but it just has been pretty sudden and has been sticking around. Without TMI, I'm having major histamine related reactions, including hives all over my body, and it's really not fun. I don't have any major allergies. I think this is my body telling me that I may be allergic to my job. And perhaps you can relate. I did go through, and the reason I'm thinking that might be the case, and there are also lesser symptoms just being extra tired, and that's one of the reasons why this has actually been delayed, because I have to record at night and I've just been falling asleep. But the reason I think it might be job related is that I went through this in a somewhat worse way back in the spring. It went away pretty quickly, and there were some seasonal allergies attached to that too, but both that time and this time were peak times of work related stress, and I think I might just be internalizing stuff too much. Maybe I need to go throw axes or something less violent. Maybe I need to just scream in a room because I think I'm just keeping it all in. And then it gets me to this point where I'm literally having to lie down while recording this. But this is not all about me and my temporary health problems. This is not what I normally talk about on here for both entertainment and privacy reasons, but I do want to share at least a little bit more about the work stuff that's impacting my day-to-day, because you too could be experiencing this because it ultimately is related to the beigeification of everything, the way that we like police each other. So I do want to share a little bit on that if you care. And then we'll move on to the more fun pop culture side of things. So thanks for sticking with me. Okay. I need to preface all of this by saying I am enormously privileged in this moment to be employed. And I don't know when you're listening to this, all 5 people listening, that could change. If I'm being completely honest, that seems a little up in the air right now. But right now, as I'm recording this, I do have to recognize that privilege because it is layoff season, apparently. And I don't think it's just my workplace. And it's really just creating not exactly a culture of fear, like not exactly like top down culture of fear, although that can be true. If that's at your workplace, I apologize. Um but more fear stemming from like a lack of transparency and morale just circling the drain. I feel like a lot of us have fight or flight activated, and that's going to manifest as some ugly health related stuff. But if there is one thing that I think I have some skill at, it is noticing signs like Ace of Base, seeing the patterns. And so, even though my immediate corporate future seems up in the air, like I can kind of tell something's happening, and that makes the day-to-day experience pretty uncomfortable. But if you've been through it once, even though it can be kind of a relief sometimes if it's like a shitty place to work, the process of like applying for unemployment and just constantly applying to jobs, not something you look forward to. Anyway, if you are listening to this, there is a chance that we have this in common. I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm not someone who has ever expected any sort of linear girl boss climb the corporate ladder situation. I was never fully indoctrinated by all the girl boss propaganda. I thought it was corny. I mean, there's like obviously inspiration of like women achieving things in their workplace. That's fine. But to me it has largely felt inauthentic because it is still corporate, right? And I think there are people who are okay with playing that game and are able to separate their lives from their work. And I've tried to do that so much and I just don't think I could do that. I can technically like do the work um if I wanted to sell my soul, but I was a poetry major, if that says anything. And I was a teacher before the rest of this. And I hate that I'm saying this, but I was also like the person who made the insufferable person who made zines in high school because I thought that was going to be my ticket to something cooler, like some other publication. I don't know. um like you, I was on Tumblr quite a bit when I was a very young child. I remember having wondering what is happening to my body, crying at like beautiful chord changes. Like when I heard Stand By Me for the first time. Like that's not the soul of someone who can deal with like Google Suite. And there's a lot of us. There's so many of us in these jobs, in these roles for paycheck reasons. Um, it just makes every facet of the work seem really challenging when we either want to be or need to be doing something creative or helping people. There are reasons why I miss teaching all the time. The pay wasn't cutting it, but like that speaks to my soul. All this silly creative work that I do, anything that you're seeing me post, like that makes me happy to be alive. And for the 9 to 5, the corporate stuff, it's not the work itself, unless it's like really tedious. That none of that is challenging. The only challenging thing that I've encountered is dealing with the politics and other people and like having the patience to do that. I had infinite patience for children and I still do, and for teaching. I don't have as much patience for mediocre men failing upward. And it's not just men that are a problem in corporate. There are some horrific like mean girl managers too. It's the whole system. And now it is the circle jerk of AI. And I don't think that people outside of actually that's not true. I think everyone knows at this point, but I don't generally think that people understand um, how hard AI is being forced down our throats, like graphically. Um, there was obviously suspicion um, about like, is this going to be a useful tool? Is it going to take our jobs? Like everyone was kind of like, what's going on? But now, just so you know, what we hear is AI is actually great for you. It's not going to take your job, silly, because we still need awesome creative people like you to tell it what to do. We still need people to train it to then take their jobs. And then cut to me seeing my friends' faces on Slack with a big fat, you were reading the archive of a deactivated account. Like they don't even have time to say goodbye. And so I'm unfortunately certain that some of you can relate to all of this happening. It is something that's causing imminent stress in my life. And I don't take kindly to my intelligence being insulted because I will choose to no longer help you. Like my instinct as a human is to help people. But it really gets to a point. Um I did post a video recently about kind of like tone policing, not even like tone policing, but just being misunderstood. So I'll try to not be redundant here. You can go ahead and watch that. It was about, I think I titled it like, what is complaining really? Um, but I used to be like at the start of my career very quiet. Like I have been a relatively introverted person throughout my life. I've been forced out of that in some ways and feel a lot more confident now. But that was not me within the first like probably year or two of my career. And I had a male boss who told me that I was so soft spoken that I had a quote unquote noise canceling voice. Like he could see that I was talking, but like nothing was happening. He didn't say that, but that's what I interpreted it as. And I told that 50 something year old man that it was because I was speaking at a frequency he couldn't hear and that I could talk to dolphins, etc. I don't even wish I were kidding. Like, I'm proud that I did that to this day. And I think that was like the last time that he like kind of messed with me. I think in like creative, cool creative companies, I think people think they can like joke with people in a way that's not, it's not that it's necessarily like inappropriate, but it like crosses a line of comfort. I've seen and heard way worse, but like, I didn't appreciate that. But I did take that note that I need to at least speak a little bit louder. So that part was heard, but also fuck that situation. But I think within the past like 5 years or so, I've had to deal with so much more of the, and I don't know if it's because I'm like speaking up more. I don't think it is, because it's something that I'm like witnessing between other people too. But this, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, even if it is to help your team or yourself. Like, forget advocating for anyone. Um, and for me personally, and this is what I shared in the video, it is me even asking a question for clarification, like, hey, when do you need this by? Or is there a brief for this task that you've given me? Like something I can refer back to. Like, those are interpreted as accusations. They're taken personally. And I've been told also, your opinions are great, but is there a way that you can phrase them so it doesn't sound like something personal? And I like don't even know. I know all of this is perhaps for naught, but it just breaks my brain every time because many of the questions that I ask are literally necessary for me to do my job. But in the end, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Just like how peanut allergies have risen over the years. For some reason, the people who are hanging on to their corporate gigs today, because it's mostly the people in like middle management and up, um, they've become allergic to accountability. And it's usually worse with men. Very, very fragile egos. Not all of them, but many. They do not like to be challenged by a woman. But it's bad. It's bad with women too. It's bad all around. But like, there's the particular types of people that you've probably dealt with them that don't like to be asked questions. Anyway, I've read some of the comments on that video that I posted on both Instagram and TikTok, and I can tell that a lot of people are dealing with the same shit, and they have been for many years. It is the pet to threat theory in action, as one person pointed out. Um, you make yourself indispensable, and then you are discarded for being the squeaky wheel or for like realizing things. You're like, wait a minute, this seems corrupt. What's going on here? You are chastised for complaining, as I was recently told after sharing a concern that was like not about me. It was about the entire team. And it kind of just soured the rest of the day because I just realized that so much of my daily effort, the stress that's causing my body to like actually fight itself, is like not even worth it in the end. Anyway, thank you for listening to that mini rant. I would say I hope you can relate, but I really don't, because we need to be better than this, I think. Um, and maybe when I'm financially able to be the creator and the creative that I want to be, even more so. I'm always like trying to work ahead at that. I can breathe a little easier, and I might feel more empowered to speak even more candidly about what I've been through and what I've seen, because I just don't feel like I can speak anything other than generally and vaguely at the moment. Anyway, until then, I will try to take it a little easier. I am taking my Zyrtec and trying to get at a normal sleeping schedule.
Microtrending.
But enough about me and hashtag corporate life. There is much more to care about. There is Operation Beige, the cultural shift that keeps getting realer and more emboldened despite how fucking boring it all is. If you are completely new to this podcast or to Operation Beige, it is my theory, if you can even call it that, that there is like a cultural arm to the goals of stuff like Project 2025 and Project Esther, the stuff being cooked up by the Heritage Foundation to get people to fall in line through the media that they're consuming. And in this theory, beige is an acronym that stands for boring and engineered to identify with gentrification and eugenics. It's something that I had put together like half as a joke, just kind of reporting on the trends that I was seeing back in March of this year. And then it kind of reached a head when the whole eugenics stuff was pretty blatant, like a really loud E. Eugenics with the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle campaign and then the Duncan ad. Again, that's in case you're unaware. And it is still hilarious to me that what was originally a jokey joke acronym could take us this far. There's always a little bit of truth, right? In every just kidding. But like I said before, we are playing catch up a little bit here. I don't have anything more to say at all. I'm done with the American Eagle campaign, with Sydney Sweeney and with Matt Rife. I've already covered that in interviews and then also in videos and podcast episodes. So let's move on to some more recent-ish headlines. I know the moment has passed, but I do want to speak just briefly on the Gap Cat's Eye ad, their most recent campaign with the girl group Cat's Eye dancing to Khalees's Milkshake. It was well done. I think it was smart for them to leverage probably the biggest girl group of the moment. Very slay that they're a global group. They seem cool. I'm not a huge fan of their music, but I would probably choose to listen to them before I listen to like Katy Perry or Taylor Swift or something. So I'm not coming at this from like a Cat's Eye lover or hater angle. I feel pretty neutral about them. But regarding the campaign itself, unless I see receipts that prove otherwise, timestamps, receipts, this is not a clapback to the American Eagle campaign with Sydney Sweeney and her quote unquote great genes. These things take time to cook in the oven. It is very convenient that these two kind of were back to back. For Gap, I think the tagline was better in denim, which could not be more neutral. But I do like it a little bit more than the jeans pun. I'm not a pun fan personally. I think cleverness is kind of the antithesis of creativity. Sometimes I could go on and on about that. But there's also Gap some more ad copy that reads, and I can understand somebody reading this as an answer to the Sydney Sweeney stuff. Quote, "This is denim as you define it. Your individuality, your self-expression, your style, powerful on your own, even better together." And you can interpret that however you want. I think this is just all very convenient. But this is so textbook Gap being Gap. They're like the Google of mall brands. Not as evil as Google, But like when it comes to their tone of voice, the language for Gap has always, and I could be wrong. Again, I haven't like looked back at historically at a lot of campaigns, but my sense of Gap's voice as a brand is that is it is very purposely human centered, very capital all caps YOU, but it is also like really flat and playing it safe regardless of the visuals. They rely a lot on the visuals and on choreography, etc. And I personally don't have any desire for them to be anything else. It's all pretty inoffensive. And yes, conveniently, it can be taken as a response if everything is in dialogue to the American Eagle campaign. But like, I want us to put our media literacy hats on and realize that this is not some strategic answer to Sydney Sweeney's swing at Eugenix. Again, unless there are receipts that prove otherwise. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. If you have any other thoughts, let me know. I think the representation was important. It was not particularly like size inclusive, but it was fun and everyone had a good time. Speaking of American Eagle, and I really do hope, God, I think I hope that there's not another American Eagle campaign to talk about. I already made a video touching on this topic, but the partnership with Travis Kelce, since we're on the beige train here, really truly in your face beige. I think with Sydney Sweeney, we got very emboldened, references to eugenics. With this one, really in your face, not only boring but beige, like the literal color. The collection itself, not subtle. And I just feel like that this company must have some insane Q whatever goals because they really went all in on back to school. From Sydney to Travis, which is quite the spectrum, quite a distance between them. And this one, obviously not as controversial as Sydney Sweeney Has Great Genes, but if you're thirsty for conspiracy or controversy, you might want to look at the timing of it all. Very convenient for this to drop right after a totally spontaneous and not planned in a 2025 marketing calendar at all engagement to Taylor Swift, whose album also, just so coincidentally, was announced shortly before. And it's pumpkin spice season. These are pumpkin spice people. Anyway, as much as you love any celebrity, you really have to understand that they are marketing vehicles beyond the marketing of their own projects. And that's obviously not new, right? Brand partnerships have been around forever, but I don't think, because of stan culture, I don't think that that is how a lot of people view celebrities. Like logically, I think they're so enamored with the individual. And so they're just excited about whatever these people attach themselves to blindly. What we're dealing with here is not separate entities of Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, the team of the Kansas City Chiefs, not individuals. It is, and stay with me, a colonial hydrozoan terrorizing the ocean in the name of the NFL, like a Portuguese man o' war jellyfish. Anyway, we're a little far gone from the Travis campaign, but I did find it funny that this was the campaign where people were like, oh my god, everything is so beige. I was tagged quite a few times, and I really do appreciate people for doing that because it has taken a minute for the general TikTok public, I feel TikTok specifically, to see beyond the literal color and connect the dullness to the fascism light of Operation Beige. Like it's finally clocking to you that we've been standing on business this whole time. But yeah, the collection was uninspired. Travis, to me, remains the epitome of what I like to call swagga, which is like Make America Great Again, but for men who are stuck in the earlier 2000s. It can be a little or a lot culture vulture of Black culture, especially music. But I think Taylor had someone perform professional trepanation on him because he seemed like he had a little bit more sauce before. If you can beige, I think that is indeed what has happened to Killatrav, aka your gym teacher. Microtrending. I think the lifespan of that campaign was like a week. Like, not much noise was made. Sorry to Travis. More recently, and I know the dust has also settled on this a bit, but I'm here to dust it off. There's been obviously a lot of ongoing discourse about Sabrina Carpenter and Man's Best Friend, the album. And I do have some additional thoughts now that no one cares anymore. I will say I thought it was great that she made a statement with her VMA's performance, specifically in support of trans rights. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's like not my place to say it, but like I'm not 100% sure what that had to do with the song choice. But in times like these, it is important to make statements like that. So I will not be complaining about that, and I have to give her flowers when they are due. But I did mention in my video on Man's Best Friend that this long-awaited album is like the music itself is somehow worse than the album cover. And I know that is probably a very unpopular opinion, but I'm here to have unpopular opinions because they are mine. And I've shared before that I have mixed thoughts on the cover itself. I did a previous episode talking about this, but my main thing is that it is, in my eyes, just unsuccessful satire. It seems like she wanted to make a statement. I know we'll never know like the true intent, but it seems like she wanted to make a cheeky statement. Um, but on the other side of things, I also don't think that it's cancelable. And I know a lot of people feel differently about that. But realistically, I have like no actual skin in the game here because I'm not a Sabrina stan. I like some of her music from Emails I Can't Send, and I honestly didn't really love Short and Sweet, I have to be honest, but I also have no desire to defend or attack her for her creative choices. I've just found the cover to be both performative and boring, which is what a lot of media is now, if you're paying attention. But that's just the cover, right? People were waiting to see if the songs, people were like waiting with bated breath, like to see if the songs themselves would be subversive. They're like, if she's going to make this big of a statement, could the songs possibly make up for the sin of the cover? Showing herself on all fours, submitting to a man, which, again, I truly believe was supposed to be a joke that really just totally flopped. But from what I can tell from listening to every track, okay, I sacrificed however many minutes that was because I want to be able to answer this authentically. listening to all of them, reading through the lyrics. Some people might enjoy some of the songs, but it is absolutely not going to make you think of her in as some sort of subversive icon or something that can really like back up what the cover was doing, if that's what you were looking for. Okay, a lot of people are just there to have a poppy good time. But for people who were really hungry for something more, it was really just the same oops, I just made a sexual pun shtick as short and sweet. Um, all that, but with fewer melodies and memorable songs. And that is what makes it an instant Operation Beige classic in my mind. A few people pointed out to me that, as if I did not know already, that she is not conservative. She is like a woke Polly Pocket. She jokes about unaliving men. So she could not possibly be beige, you know? But this is someone who, and I could be wrong, but I really strongly feel that, like Taylor Swift, she is safe and she will always be safe. And I mean that from an image protection standpoint, being white, being blonde, being blue-eyed, also the Disney pedigree, and safe as in how mainstream friendly she is. Even with the like sexy lyrics, she is still a mainstream act. For me, Man's Best Friend as a music project, the music is beige because it is boring. It is mediocre. Like, just even if you're like a fan, you can compare it to her other work, but it's beige because it is mediocre and it is still streaming like hotcakes, which isn't a saying, but you know what I mean. And a lot of that is pay to play. There's some payola going on there. But in the very first beige breakdown that I did back in March, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but I mentioned a tenet of Operation Beige being that the powers that be, put mediocrity on a pedestal. And I had an image of Taylor Swift and Blake Lively together as examples. I know I could have selected another image for that, but they are very much in the mainstream and I think are really good examples of this. I am famously not a fan of either person, but they have fans in part because their respective performances are so hashtag relatable and inoffensive. They're not greats from an artistry perspective in their categories. It's the beautiful gowns of it all. There is like zero that is subversive about them. And Sabrina as a person and like what she stands for may not fit that same mold. But with this album specifically, because Jack Antonoff cursed it, and like people like, I know that people like to blame him a lot, but like at a certain point you have to recognize that you're the problem. And I know that like it's so fucked up. This is like the Operation Beige of it all because like it's bad production wise. Like it is not dynamic at all. It is flat as hell, but it's sick because it doesn't matter because people are eating this up anyway and he's still making bank. So I don't know when that cycle is going to be broken. But let's put the production aside for a second because that's part of the problem. But the lyrics, even with clever metaphors, like in House Tour, it's even with like an extended metaphor like that, it still ends up sounding like a lot of telling versus showing, which I know that sounds crazy when you're just literally listening to a song. Like, how could you be showing something? But it's because it feels emotionless and there's no production to like pick up the slack and bring it to life. It almost sounds like she's reciting bad, sexy poetry versus like truly delivering from like a pop music standpoint. And I say this as someone who used to read poetry at open mics. Like, I know what that is. And this just, it made me cringe. And I've called her and other pop artists purveyors of sexual charades before. Versus like playing Twister, which is what like Britney and like Janet Jackson were doing, where like you're actually sacrificing the body. But the reason why it seems like Sabrina Carpenter is giving us sexual charades instead is because it feels like she wants so badly for you, the listener, to guess what she's talking about. I hope I don't sound too crazy, but like a lot of the songs feel like that. She's like, "Do you get it? Do you get it?" And then if you got it right, she would go, "Hoo hoo," like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Like, that's the energy that I'm getting from so many of these songs. And there's nothing sexy about that. That's where the like performative and boring part comes back in. And that's not to say that some of the songs aren't fun. Like, listening to the album's not going to ruin your day. Um, but it just does not really make you feel anything. And I do want to caveat that I am not that perverted of an individual when it comes to my listening habits. Like, I'm not hoping for something raunchier necessarily, but I would rather listen to Cupcake, honestly, for the most part. Um, Ariana Grande's Positions album, a personal favorite. So I have some bias there, but there's many an erotic turn of phrase and some that I think are perfectly fine to cringe at. But it is also a great fucking album with highs and lows, moments of empowerment, moments of tenderness. It's, I mean, beyond her being an amazing singer, like, it's just an album that you might return to. There is also a more current song that all of this made me think of, which is Toro by Remy Wolf, which subject matter wise would fit onto a Sabrina album. Uh, but it is just so beyond in terms of melody and like every other metric that makes for a satisfying pop song. And it's just playful without all of the like winking and self-awareness. Anyway, if you haven't heard that song, give it a listen. I love it. On this topic, I have also been trying to sum up kind of how this album and other current pop artists like Tate McRae, how I can describe them in ways other than beige, like in terms of what's missing from the music itself, because like anybody can call anything boring. But if we want to speak specifically about like what's working and what's not, my conclusion as of right now, mid-September 2025, is that we are in a 2D music era. And this is just like mainstream pop music. There's a lot of great stuff happening in other genres. But actually, there are probably some other genres that are also slacking. But we are rarely operating on all cylinders where everything is hitting in the way that it should. Melodies especially have been impacted by tariffs in a huge way. That really stands out to me as like the difference of like pop music now and where it was in the past is like just sing along memorable melody. And I know that there are people doing it now. Chapel Roan is doing this in a big way. Appreciate her for that. But by and large, this is like really fallen off. The average pop song in 2025 can afford the two dimensions, I believe, of lyrics and audience awareness. Are there cheeky lyrics that your fans can make TikToks with? Is it going to have a solid ROI based on the slop that they're already eating up? We know that AI is infiltrating the music world, and we've also seen how the movie industry is like not really interested in shaking things up with original IP. There's a lot of sequels and really formulaic shit that's out there because they are looking to make money, period. What we're missing music wise is the dimension of how music itself can make you feel outside of intellectualizing lyrics. And I know I blame so much stuff on Taylor Swift, and if you are a Swiftie, I don't want to say I apologize, but like it is what it is. What happened with Swiftie stan culture in terms of like close reading of lyrics, like that did not deserve to even perhaps be read at that level. Looking for Easter eggs and trying to figure out what it all means, going like true crime on honestly pretty poorly written lyrics has really changed the way that we experience music now. It all just feels very soulless and shoppable and marketable. It's an icky situation. And I'm all for close reading stuff. I'm all for like over analyzing things, but like I don't really think that music needs to be the thing that you were using all of that energy on all the time. I will also say I don't know if anyone is reading into Tate McRae lyrics very much. I've seen some people do that. But I think for her the two dimensions are like the choreography and audience awareness. And I may have just summoned Abby Lee Miller. Also, God, the more I think about this, Benson Boone, forgot about him. Um, to his credit, is actually he is giving us a 3D, if not 4D experience. Because even if you close your eyes, listening, you can always imagine him flipping his body at you, activating your fight or flight. But I don't think that's by design. I think that's just him. That's just the like performative male-itis of it all.
Microtrending.
I think that's it. There's always more, but I think that's it for now. In case you missed it, I also recently did post about yet another beige update, which is the US Vogue October issue with Kendall Jenner and Gigi Hadid. So check that out if you haven't. But I think that's all the beige that's fit to print at this moment. And I do talk about other things sometimes, especially if you're for any reason listening to this podcast episode first. There are other trending topics that pop up, but it really has been downhill in some ways since the American Eagle stuff. But I'm just honestly relieved that like we're all kind of talking about this now. And anyone can say it's not that deep, but I really think when it comes to cultural stuff, it's not that deep ourselves right into beige fascist hell. And it's happening, but like we can protect ourselves against that. Anyway, as always, if there is a microtrending topic, Operation Beige related or not, that you would like covered here, you can email me at saltlacroix@gmail.com. That's salt and then LaCroix like the beverage. Or you can DM me. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you soon. Bye.
Microtrending.